Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Today is Wednesday, September 24th. This is episode number 314. I'm your host, Rod Bloom. Joining me today is my brother, Jeff, fresh from his, we'll call it a vacation, hiatus, whatever you want to say. So it's good to have you back, Jeff.
Yeah, good to be back, Rod. I guess I didn't miss much last week. You and Bill sort of cried in your beer for an hour and a half.
We kind of did. Yeah. We cried enough to hopefully help the Browns, play a little bit better.
Well, there you go. You
Good
straightened them out.
enough. Yeah, we straighten them out. Yeah. Joining us in the other corner is our guest, Ryan Burns. You can follow him at, I'm just going to say Football Sickness. People can figure that out, Ryan. And Ryan is coming out of retirement to join us. It's been a little while since he's done a podcast, but you're pretty well known for doing podcasts, Ryan. So we really appreciate you coming on. We're looking forward to talking some Browns with you.
I'm looking forward to it as well. I appreciate the invite, and it's good to see you guys. And Jeff, of course, I trust there's no taunting of the audience and the crowd with that Baker jersey. We're just celebrating.
This is actually a JOK jersey.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
I've got it backwards.
That's all right.
That's all right. Yeah, guys, we got a lot of Brown stuff to talk about. We're gonna kick the podcast off with our Blitz beverage segment. So talk about our beverages and what we're drinking. So I told Ryan to be a little bit later. It's actually like a minute and a half into the show that we do our beverages, just so you got time to kind of savor that drink a little bit. And
Yep.
Ryan, if you're ready, we usually let the guests go first. So if you want to talk about what you're drinking, you can.
I have got something. I'm not going to pick it up yet. You'll see it shortly, but it's still foaming over the top. So I'm going to let it finish off of my desk there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm drinking something from the Long Beach Beer Lab, which is a local brewery down here in Southern California. One of our partners here has a connection to a beverage company, and so they get to stock our office fridge occasionally. And so I've got a West Coast IPA of sorts. I have to confess, I'm not drinking a ton of beer anymore these days, but if I do, it's going to be something generally a little heavier like that, and I'm just going to have one. That's what it is. It's not too heavy. It looks like about 6.5. It's got a nice little rat on the on the can. I'll show you in a minute once it settles down.
Nice.
Very nice. I like beers with a local flavor like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, cool.
So Jeff, what do you have tonight?
Well, my selection is far less exotic than Ryan's. So as we mentioned, I was out last week, and I had two options really for the whole week: Heineken Zero, and what I'm going to show you right now. Which, if you told me 5 years ago I'd be drinking this beer, I'd have said you were crazy. But I actually kind of got used to it throughout the week last week, and it is a Blue Moon Belgian White. Summertime beer, and these actually go down pretty easy when you're sitting on a cruise ship and it's about 85 degrees. Of course tonight it's neither one of those are true, but I picked up a box of these just to have them for something different. So anyway, I got used to it. I wouldn't have drank it 5 years ago, but it works for me now.
I mean, you can close your eyes and pretend you're still on the cruise ship, right?
There you go.
Sounds good. Plus, you don't have a whole lot of summer left, so you might as well embrace it.
Yeah, there's none.
yeah, it's pretty well gone. So, guys, I thought this was an appropriate occasion to get out my last Joe Thomas 73 Kolsch and drink this as we talk some Browns. So, I bought these a while back, and I kind of been saving that last one. So everybody knows what those are, man. It's a good beer, obviously. And even if you didn't like it, you drink it because it's got Joe Thomas on the can.
Right. There you go.
So you can't lose.
As good a reason as any.
That's right.
Yep.
So, Ryan, I didn't tell you about this part, but when we have guests on the podcast for the first time, we have them tell us just a little bit about their Browns fandom and how they became a Browns fan. So really just anything you want to share about
Sure.
about your fandom. So we're just going to call this My Browns Fandom, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. So it depends on how you look at it, but I always like to say that I'm a Browns fan by genetic defect mostly. My dad was born in Cleveland and spent the first several years of his life in a town called Wadsworth, just south of Cleveland there. And even though they left I'm going to say he was 6 or 7 years old and moved to the Pittsburgh area, he stuck with the Browns. You know, he grew up on Jimmy Brown, and that was his guy, and that was going to be his team forever. And so I was born and raised out here. You know, my dad in his teens actually moved out to California, went to school out here, stayed out here. You know, in my house growing up there, you know, the local teams, we were about 20 minutes from Anaheim Stadium. So the Rams were theoretically an option, but I didn't really get into the Rams. I was a big, you know, I'm following my dad's teams kind of kid. So for whatever reason, the Browns are the only team from Ohio that stuck with him. He's an Angels fan. He still roots for the Phillies a little bit, but he's an Angels fan, and he's a UCLA fan. You can see I ended up going to UCLA. I've got my bad football bona fide something fierce between the Bruins and the Browns the last 20 years. And so, yeah, I grew up on the 80s Browns, you know, the Clay Matthews, Chip Banks, Bernie Kosar, Webster Slaughter, and Ernie Biner and Kevin Mack. Those were my teams. And if you grew up on those teams, it was hard not to really fall in love with that group and that team, and it stuck.
Yeah, you're on the right podcast for that. That's right where we kind of grew up and really got into the Browns. So yeah,
Right.
Easy team to love.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, thanks for sharing that. You know, it takes. I mean, I guess I guess I would say you were kind of born into it. You know, you still had to make the choice to follow the Browns, but you know, but when it's your dad's team, you know, I think that shows a lot of character to stick with them through all these years, especially when you're surrounded with all those teams out in California.
Well, I should be clear. The Raiders were very clearly not an option in my home. I was that much was made clear.
That ship sailed.
Yeah. But I couldn't get into the Rams. I liked the Niners when they were on TV. You know, they were fun to watch. And so, yeah, I got sucked into the Browns really early. And there was something to it in high school. One of my good buddies that I'd known since third grade, we discovered that we both happened to be Browns fans. And so in high school, we started driving to one of the local, you know, Browns backers club spots where they showed the games every weekend. So we, you know, we're all old enough to remember there was, you know, if you didn't live in Cleveland, you weren't necessarily seeing the Browns every Sunday. And so we had to go hunt and drive a decent number of miles to get to a bar where A, we could get in, and B, they were showing the Browns. So through college and high school, I was doing all that. And I was in college when they picked up and moved to Baltimore, and I was heartbroken along with all of you. Great moment when they came back, and I just wish we could get this particular version of it back on the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do about that tonight, Ryan.
We'll
see what kind of problems we can solve tonight. So, guys, let's get into it. We usually start off with some Browns news. You know, a lot of it's game related, but I guess a couple things. Andre Schmidt, we all know how to say and maybe even spell his name now. He goes from GOAT a couple of weeks ago. You know, and I'll be honest, I was calling for kicker tryouts, you know, when he missed those 2 kicks against the Bengals. He goes from that to being the AFC special teams player of the week with that field goal. I mean, you got to be happy for him. You got to be happy that you know, that he's making kicks 2 games in a row. And I'm not I'm not saying anything about the kicker the rest of the season because I talked about the kicker at our halftime podcast, in that Bengals game, and then he didn't make another kick. So, do you guys have anything to say about Andre Schmidt that you'd like to talk about?
I'm really glad he made that kick for everyone's sake.
Yeah.
I'm really glad. And, look, he's a kicker. I have a really hard time nailing the kicking game down. I think it's an impossible job. I think the one thing that we as Browns fans can say is maybe a little unique is it's just a bitch to kick in that environment, to kick in that stadium with the wind off the lake. It's harder than almost everywhere else. You can ask Phil Dawson about that, and he talks about it at some length. And so I think you're going to have to live with some misses from almost any kicker. And then you have to deal with the natural waves that come and go with guys who have confidence and then lose it. It's just like standing on the tee at the golf course, and some days you're drilling them down the middle, and other days it feels like you've never held the club in your hand. I assume that's what kicking is like. It's what it looks like, because you'll have a guy who makes every kick for a month and then can't hit anything for 6 months. And your guess is as good as mine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to kind of take the good with the bad.
Yeah, I think so. So DeJuan Jones, unfortunately, is done for the season. He's on IR, needing surgery on the knee, and the Browns signed. It's Thayer Mumford Jr. I saw some people were calling him Taylor Mumford online. It is Thayer Mumford Jr. Off New England's practice squad. So, Jeff, you gave me a little bit of information about him. I didn't have a lot of time to check him out. I know he played at Ohio State and he was on New England's practice squad. Thoughts on this signing other than they really needed to bring somebody in?
Yeah, I mean, it says everything about our offensive tackle room that he will immediately step in and be the third best tackle on the team. That assumes that Jack Conklin's healthy. Otherwise, he's the second best tackle on our team. So we're hurting.
You've raised probably my primary concern, both short-term and long-term, organizationally. Yes. I mean, I think I'm perpetually concerned about two pieces of depth. It's always the O-line and the defensive backfield, usually more corner than safety, but it could be either one or both.
Right.
We've certainly seen enough of that. But this team in particular, it's the O-line, because they just can't absorb any further loss here. I mean, they might not be able to absorb this one. And I wasn't particularly optimistic about how DeJuan was playing to begin with. It wasn't like he was out here, emulating Joe Thomas. So I've got concerns. I assume they'll be dealt with next offseason, and they're going to have to be, right, by necessity. But for this version of this team, and for the things that I think this team needs to be trying to work on and get better at and determine about themselves, both for now and the future, I think if you don't have your act together on the O-line, it's going to put a real challenging wrinkle into pretty much everything they need to do this year.
Yeah. I have my concerns about the offensive line in general. I have major concerns about tackles in specifically. We've been talking about this for probably 3 seasons now, Rod, that and I've used the term malpractice when it comes to recruiting and developing offensive tackles to this ball club. I think the expectation level was set way too high for DeJuan Jones this year. We were extremely fortunate last year to get a almost completely healthy season out of Jack Conklin. That almost never happens. So, going into this season, it just felt like we were skating on really thin ice with those two guys as our starters. Bringing Cornelius Lucas in was a really good move, but you need more than one, and we're going to be scrambling now, unfortunately, for the rest of the season. And the decision over the last 2 drafts to not really bring in anybody and develop them on our own, it's just left us in a tough spot. And like Ryan just said, next year we've got to retool the entire offensive line, and we just don't know where those guys are going to come from. So, I mean, I think Thayer Mumford can give us some quality snaps this year. We just really have to hope that Cornelius Lucas holds up, and that these guys can elevate their play to at least a respectable level, because we're counting on backups to be our starters now.
Yeah. I think we're going to be talking more about the offensive line as we go on tonight, guys. Yeah. So Jeff, you were out last week. I just wanted to give you a few minutes. I know you watched each of the last two games when you got back from vacation. Is there anything in particular you wanted to say about the Ravens game before we move on and get into the Packers game?
Yeah, I won't dwell on it. I think that's a game you just need to flush. There's a couple of good things that I took from that game, though, that I did want to mention. I mean, things that I haven't seen in a while, and I thought they were kind of encouraging. Number one, when's the last time we saw a successfully run reverse by the Browns offense? And Isaiah Bond was fairly successful with a reverse early in that game. So that was nice to see. The other thing that kind of got my juices flowing was the Quinshon Judkins stiff arm. That's something that we haven't seen in the last few seasons since Nick Chubb before he got hurt. I think that was kind of the launching point for the running game. That stiff arm, just for me, got everybody psyched up about running the football, and we've seen at least the beginnings of a run game now from the Browns from that point forward. So the rest of the game, like I said, I think you just flush it. It was a lot of bad things that happened that were kind of one-offs. That I don't know how much of it was just bad play and how much of it was bad luck. But the other thing is, I just wanted to draw a contrast in those two games between the two Joe Flaccos. And maybe Ryan will back me up on this. In the Ravens game, Joe threw an absolutely horrible game-wrecking interception. A lot of other things went bad in that game, so I'm not going to blame the loss on his interception, but it was certainly at an inopportune time, and I thought just crushed the Browns having any momentum in that football game on a really terrible decision. He also had an interception in the Packers game that, to my mind, was meaningless. It was about as good as maybe Corey Bojorquez could have punt in that situation. So it just goes to show you that when you look at the stats, Flacco actually threw 9 fewer times in that Packers game than he did in the Ravens game. Had an interception in both games. I thought the Packers game was a much better game for him than the Ravens game. And if he can continue to be in the 30 to 35 pass attempt range and not commit those killer interceptions and fumbles and turnovers and stuff, just control the game a little bit better, I think we have a chance to put together a decent offense. That, for me, that was the takeaway from those two games. That's why we lost one really ugly, and we won one with some luck on our side.
So a couple things. So you're telling me you don't want Joe Flacco to lead the league in pass attempts, right?
No.
Okay.
I want
that would be bad.
I want to completely exercise the Ken Dorsey offense from our system.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah,
and
I think that's a good plan.
Yeah. And Ryan, I wanted to ask you about the reverse. I don't know how much you saw that play or what angles you saw it from, but in your opinion, is there anything different in play design there, or is that play strictly Isaiah Bond?
So it's a good question. I'm not sure I have the right answer to it, but the way I saw it when it happened was that's why they have Isaiah Bond, is for the past number of years. And it seems like this guy has always gotten hurt in the preseason, and we haven't gotten to see this aspect of the offense at all. And I'm going to blank on all the different names, but it seems like there have been 3 or 4 of them maybe in a row that in the offseason they go out and they get a guy who's ostensibly a return guy, but he's also this jet sweep motion kind of guy who's there to do these kinds of plays, in addition to occasionally, hopefully vertically stretching a defense. And so to me, I saw that play and I thought, well, if you're going to ease a guy like Isaiah Bond into your offense, it makes a lot of sense to just get the ball in his hands while he's running and give him room to go. And don't clog it up with a bunch of other stuff like having to think about reading coverages and all that. He'll get to that, right? But this is a guy that obviously didn't have any spring. He didn't have any of their camp stuff really. And so to me, we've got a guy who's electric with the ball, and fast as heck without it. So we'll use that too. But here's a chance to get him involved, get him a feel for what it feels like to carry the ball on the field, and we're taking him towards the boundary. So there's a relative risk, management issue there too. So to me, I think they've always wanted this element in their offense, and I think they've been constrained by their personnel. Some of that was choices, and some of that was injuries. And that's sort of always the case, right? But in this instance, I think with Bond, I think they plan for him to be a meaningful piece of the offense by the time this season's over. So just to dovetail on what Jeff said about the two Flaccos there, for me, it's more that I'm of two minds about Joe Flacco, because certainly it makes sense that what we want is someone in there who knows what they're doing and is going to protect the ball, in a universe where we're talking about a team that for it to have a real chance to win, it needs to not be in shootouts, right? We all think this is a team that is going to be led by its defense. The offense needs to be efficient. Here's the problem. I can't score 10 points. I can't score less than 17 and have that plan really work very often anyway. And when you've got the two number ones hanging out there, and you've got the rookie who supposedly has a supercomputer processing brain, it's only natural that people are looking around going, what are we doing? If Joe's not going to be a little more aggressive, what purpose is he really serving? And I think the answer is still probably the obvious one, which is he still knows what he's doing way better than these other guys. He knows how to check you out of a bad play and into a tolerable one way better than these other guys. He's seen everything they're going to throw at him defensively. He's not going to, that pick against the Ravens, though, he can't do that, right? You feel the season's been a little unfair in terms of his INT statistics, because he got the one yesterday, like you said, that's a punt, and the receivers dropped two of them into the arms of Baltimore defenders, right? So it's all supposedly going to come out on the wash. I do want that a little bit more aggressive version of Joe Flacco, because I think they've got some guys that can win. It's probably a little bit constrained by pass protection at the moment.
I would agree. 100%.
I don't think they think they can get the longer developing stuff done right now. And
he's got a second and a half to make a decision. Unfortunately, right now.
Yeah,
and everything is still hard on offense.
Yeah, putting that a rookie in that situation behind that line and with those time constraints would be disastrous. I mean, Joe is actually providing a benefit to this organization just by getting guys lined up correctly that I'm not sure a rookie could do. So we're a little premature in wanting to insert a rookie quarterback to try to maybe win one or two more games. Right now, we've got some real problems to solve in terms of just looking like a professional offense and scoring more than 20 points. So, Joe, I think gives us that stability, and I'm happy with. I can live with the mistakes he's going to make for the benefit of that experience that Ryan was just talking about in settling the other 10 guys down.
A lot of young guys out there. A lot of them.
A lot.
Yeah, I saw a stat today that over 50% of the Browns' offense has come from rookies. I mean, I guess I kind of thought that was probably the case. When you're using Harold Fannin and Judkins and Bond as much as you are, But
Well,
wow,
and
that's
Sampson and
Yeah.
Fannin, they threw the ball like crazy to Fannin the first
right,
couple weeks.
right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
how often has that happened in the NFL though? Someone's got to come up with that stat. You know, I mean, when's the last time a team through the first 3 games got 50% of their offense from rookies? I don't know if that's ever happened in the NFL before.
I bet it's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we could find out real fast, but we'll do that after the show. So,
right.
yeah. So let's move on to this to Sunday's game against the Packers. I'm going to go back to the score predictions just because it's a little bit interesting. Bill had the Packers winning 23-20. What was the over under in that game? 42.5. So he took the over. I was thinking low scoring game. I had the Packers winning 17-13. So you guys can do the math. The Packers were driving down. They would have had, and it's not what I wanted to happen. I'm just saying my prediction was fairly close, but I did have the Browns losing, so I'm not taking any credit for it. But I came pretty close. It's pretty close on the score, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, look, two weeks in a row, you're kind of on a roll. You know, about
I'm on a roll of being somewhat close, but not close enough
all right
to actually, claim a victory or anything. But that's okay. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, you guys talked a lot about Flacco. I mean, this game, I told Jeff before we started recording, I went back and watched those last, what is it, 3 minutes and 3.5 minutes of the game, because I'm like, how did they do this?
Right.
How did they come back and win this game? So and I'm not going to go through it because everybody watched it. A lot of people probably watched it twice, like I did. But a couple of the interesting things that I saw were going back to that fumble that Green Bay had, that Devin Bush may or may not have recovered. There was a minute 56 left at that point, and kind of wondering at that point. I'm trying to think of what the score was. It was still, I think it was, it was 10-10 at that point. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm wondering what you guys think. How things might have been different if the Browns would have got the ball then instead of with 20-some seconds left, because then you're at a point where you got to drive the field and try to kick a field goal or score a touchdown and not leave any time on the clock. I'm wondering if that would have been worse almost. I know you got more time and it sounds more ideal, but man, Green Bay was moving the ball so good there. If you do anything and score and leave them any time, especially if you go down and stall and kick a field goal, I almost feel like them not getting that fumble recovery worked out well. I mean, obviously it worked out well, but I feel like that may not have worked out well if they would have gotten it. So I don't know. I just wonder what you guys think about that in hindsight.
I think the ball don't lie. I think he caught it. I think he recovered it, and that's why we were able to get the whole win. But ultimately, I remember thinking, even if they get this fumble, they got to go do something with it. And it's not like I've been presented with a lot of evidence to have faith in their ability to do that. But that said, they did have a little bit of momentum at that point. I think they did have sufficient time, had they recovered that they weren't going to have to just chuck it 8 straight plays, right? They could have still used Judson. They still could have done a little bit, or Judkins, excuse me, and done a little bit of the short game stuff and kept it in between the hashes if they needed to. I just, to your point, Rod, I just don't have any reason to have a ton of faith in them to ever finish a drive right now. I'd like to, they've scored no points. I need them to finish. When they've been in the red zone, they've actually finished at a relatively high rate. I saw a stat today tweeted around where they're in like the top 10 of red zone touchdown rate. The problem is they haven't been in the red zone.
They never get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't get there.
And so, again, I think it's important to maintain some perspective on a couple of things. Number one, you're playing with a bunch of kids out there. They're professionals. They're out there to do the job, but a lot of them are right now learning on the job. Number two, this is not the Browns O-line of old. From my seat, I still think the guards are playing really, really good football. I've been pretty disappointed with Posich so far. I don't know nothing about O-line play beyond my best man was a guard at ASU during the Jake Plummer years. So I've seen some film. I've talked to him about how the game works. I know this much about it. So none of what I'm going to say about O-line should be taken with any seriousness. But I've noticed a few times where it's like that used to be something that got done pretty easily, and now it doesn't seem like it's getting done. The tackles I fully priced in. I expected this to be a total adventure, and it looks like it's going to be. I did see a report today that Barry is looking at some kind of trade at the O tackle position, and assuming they're not giving up a ton, I'd be pretty supportive of that. I think from a long-term perspective, you have to hope that you get to use one of your first rounders on one next year. But that's all obviously a pretty big. We'll see, because there's a lot to play out before you can make that decision.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you've said many times, Rod, how do you even evaluate a rookie quarterback behind an offensive line this bad? As far as the Packers game goes, I'm going to go back a little bit earlier, Rod, just to answer your question about the what ifs. Just under 4 minutes when the Browns got the ball back after the defense held, there were 2 runs by Quinshon Judkins that I thought were absolute statement plays. And I think 2 plays later, there was a pass to Harold Fannin where he literally dragged 4 guys 4 yards for the first down.
Yeah.
To me, that's when it felt like the momentum shifted in the game. And you felt like, okay, we might have a chance. Immediately after that, Wyatt Teller gets called for a chop block, and they end up moving back on successive plays they go from the 1 yard line to the 30 or something.
Right.
And I'm going, oh my God, this team can't stand prosperity. So they kicked the field goal, but then the Delpit interception, to me, swung everything right back almost immediately. Like within 30 seconds, we scored 10 points.
Yeah.
So, that Bush punch out, while I think it was unfortunate, is probably called wrong. I think it wasn't as critical because the team, there just felt like there was some resilience at that point. Yeah. Like they were going to figure out a way to win this game. And as Micah Parsons says, Green Bay was going to figure out a way to shit the bed. And including him, getting called for a neutral zone infraction that moved us 5 yards closer on the game-winning field goal. But I thought what really sucked about that Bush thing was that they initiated a booth review, and it went against the Browns and ended up costing us our final timeout. And Stefanski's over there screaming, going, "Wait a minute,
we didn't even initiate it.
I don't want to lose my timeout." But so anyway, So a lot of things had to go right in those last 4 minutes for the Browns to come away with a win. And you just almost feel like it's, 3 seasons worth of us shitting the bed that finally came back full circle to us. That, we had some things go our way. Green Bay committed a ton of penalties in that stretch that gave us a bunch more chances. And it's how the NFL is. You can play near perfect football for 3.5 quarters, and then the last half of the fourth quarter, nothing goes right for you, and you lose the game. That's exactly what happened to us against the Bengals.
Yeah, you better put the ball in the end zone. That's the lesson.
Well, that
Packers
does
put
make
the
it
ball in
easier.
the end zone, right?
That does make it easier. Yeah.
Score more
But, you know,
points.
your quarterback can't, like,
It's a simple game.
Jordan Love did his best impersonation of Deshaun Kaiser, I thought, in the second half. Just kept making
Yeah.
horrible decisions. So yeah, you take all of those with you're happy to have all of those things go your way when they do, because it doesn't seem like it happens very often.
Yeah, guys, there were so many times when I thought the Browns had lost the game. You know, when Green Bay's driving down, you know, I'm
When
like,
they kicked it
oh my
off.
gosh. Yeah, well, yeah, that too. But yeah, when they're driving down there, I'm thinking, man, Green Bay's going to score again. This game's over. And then there's the punch out, and then there's the blocked field goal. The pass, the Flacco pass to Njoku with 12 seconds left. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Here-
oh my
here's how
God,
we're
what's
gonna
he
lose.
doing? I'm like,
Here's
what's
how
he
we're going to screw
doing?
this up.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, the game's over.
Yeah.
And then because all the announcers are saying is, well, you can't go to the middle of the field. You got to have 15 seconds left. You can't go to the middle of the field. There's no way.
Yeah.
You got to have at least 15 seconds. And what they do, they go to the middle of the field, and they get the ball spiked. It was like, I don't
With
know.
room to spare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they had 2 seconds left. 2
Yep.
seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how does that happen? I mean, how well coached? I mean, does that say something about the coaching staff? Does that say more about Joe Flacco? I mean, I think David Njoku was key in that too, and getting down. He deserves a lot of credit on that play.
Yeah.
But those guys all knew exactly what they had to do, and it was very well rehearsed. I don't think Green Bay knew that was coming. It was just incredible. And for me, as soon as they got that ball spiked, I knew the Browns were going to win. I mean, honestly, I didn't even need to watch the kick. I'm like, man, things were going so much our way at that point that I'm like, there's no way this kid's going to miss the kick now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And even if he did, you felt like they'd have a good chance of winning it in overtime. It's just everything felt at that point like it was going the way it was supposed to go. And yeah, I think you're right, Rod. I think that's an indication that offensive unit was very well coached and very well practiced for that exact scenario, and they executed it flawlessly. And I think that's one of the few times we've seen that kind of clock management out of this organization in recent memory. And it was a great thing to see.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you guys said it first. But that was my takeaway as well. Look, I'm not there in Berea. I strongly suspect, based on the context clues, that they've practiced that repeatedly. That moment, we're going to need to win games by a field goal. We're going to need an extra few yards to kick said field goal. We better have some clock preparation ideas for that. Here are the 2 or 3 things that need to happen on that play. David, you got to catch the ball. You got to be down. You got to keep the ball. You can't have it knocked out or somebody messing with it after the clock because they're trying to slow the game down. You got to make sure it gets to either the center or the official. By the way, sidebar, really, really fortunate that the official just stepped up, touched the ball, didn't have to fondle it and make his own spot and everything. He just walked up, touched it, and got out of there. That saved them. I still think they get it done, but that helped. But it was very clear to me that it had been prepared and that Njoku knew exactly what he needed to do, and they executed it to a T. And you see something like that, and I just don't believe it's an accident. That is preparation. And let's give some credit where due. That's one of those moments where it absolutely helps to have a 40-year-old Super Bowl winning quarterback, period.
True.
Yeah, it felt that way. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence of the Flacco thing, and I agree with you guys. It's probably too early to go to the rookie, but I kind of see this offense and kind of feel like, man, if there was just some kind of spark to where they could score an extra 7 points, 10 points a game, this defense is so good that they, this team could be, this team could really have a shot at winning a lot of games. So that's what I see. But then I see that side of it, and I know the problems with the offensive line, and any rookie that plays, is going to face those same problems. So, it's a conundrum, but I think I guess Flacco's probably the safe way to go for now. So that makes sense to me.
I think that mark that people have been looking at after like game 5 or 6, I think that's still a pretty rational idea. I mean, look, if they're 3-3 or 4-2, they're obviously not going to make any kind of switches at the quarterback position because that's not what you do.
Right.
But and I'm sure we'll talk about it. They've still got a bunch of good teams to get through. And so I think at some point, and it's not like we haven't heard Haslam allude to it, they're going to want to see, and I think Stefanski wants to see what he's got in Gabriel. So we'll find out eventually.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought it was really good to get Dylan Gabriel in at the end of the game, get him at the end of the Ravens game, to get him some live game action. I mean, he was obviously playing against a very soft defense, but for him to go out there and have some success on a drive is a good foundation piece. So I thought that was good coaching as well. I just want to, because we've been hard on the coaching staff. You guys were very hard on the coaching staff last week. I think those are a couple of instances where we see that this organization is doing a lot of the right things too. It doesn't always turn out well, but they're doing a lot of the right things.
Yeah. So I've got some stats here from the game. I'm not going to go through all these, but Quinshon Judkins, guys, he's leading all rookie running backs in rushing yards, and he's played one game less than all the other guys. Yeah. The guys that are getting bigger headlines and being talked about and stuff as star
I have
running
the numbers.
backs.
I have the numbers here, Rod. I mean, 10 rushes for 61 yards against the Ravens, 18 rushes for 94 yards against the Packers. 18 rushes for 94 yards is that's kind of like what we used to expect week in and week out of our starting running back, right?
Yeah, those are
And that's his second game.
Right. Pretty incredible. I mean, I tell you what, he made some of those cuts he made. I'm not going to compare him to anybody, but he sure looks like the real deal out there to me. With some of those cuts where he's very decisive, and he's got the feet and the ability to cut on a dime and make guys grasp it, at the air. So
the other thing that I liked about his game against the Packers, Rod, was that lick he laid on Micah Parsons in the second level blocking.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Micah Parsons was about this close to going night-night. He stood up and he pointed at Judkins and said, "I see you, young man." And you looked at his eyes and they were like glossed over. Judkins lays a hit on a guy. When you've been in a game with him, and we saw it at Ohio State. He has that ability to finish a run and finish for positive yardage. It's really encouraging. I don't think the line is blocking all that much better than they were in week 1 and 2. I just think he's taking advantages of opportunities.
He's that much better.
He's a much more physical runner than the other guys.
Yeah, for sure.
More violent runner. Like, I don't want to compare him to guys either. But he does the trait that I would compare to like Kareem Hunt, the violence of the cuts and the decisiveness at the hole and the willingness to take on contact. That's all top shelf stuff. And I don't think we're going to see him do, I don't think we're going to see him take an 8-yard carry and turn it into a 92-yard carry like we saw a handful of times from a Nick Chubb. But I think he's going to turn eight into 40 like we saw this weekend, plenty. And he's going to turn.
We'll take that.
He's going to turn 3 into 8 all the time. And so, we'll take it for sure because this team needs to move some chains, if nothing else.
Yep.
And he's clearly going to help them do that.
Yeah, guys, the defensive line, I can't remember how many sacks they had, but I counted there were 6 players that had at least half a sack in that game. So a lot of guys on defensive line and other places getting into the action, but I want Ryan to talk a little bit about Carson Schlesinger because I know he's got to be your guy. You're probably one of the few Browns fans that probably just stood up and cheered when they drafted him, while the rest of us are saying, "Where are they taking this linebacker for?"
I'll go you one better. I was doing it in the first round because I was saying before the draft that I thought there was a decent chance that Mason Graham was going to be the best NFL player out of this draft. So I was thrilled when they did what they did. Look, I wanted Travis Hunter like anybody else. I wasn't ready I didn't want to take one of the other quarterbacks. If they could have gotten up to get Cam Ward, I liked him. I would have done it. But I didn't want to take one of the other ones at 2. I just didn't see that kind of player. If you saw that kind of player, obviously that's what you would do. But I didn't. Yeah. And so I was thrilled that they went and got a bunch more draft capital, some of which we already know is now Quinshon Judkins, and got a guy who I think is going to be a decade plus stud in Mason Graham. And then when they took Schlesinger off the board, that first pick on the second day of the draft, I was pretty pumped. There were a lot of signs that they needed to do something like that. I thought it might be because the vibes coming off of the JOK situation this offseason to me were always pretty dark. It was, we're not going to get this guy back, maybe ever, but definitely not this year. I'm operating under the assumption that he's done, but if we ever get him back, I'll be thrilled. Because if you could have these two guys out there together, but yeah, Carson last year as the 1 year he played, because he's a walk-on guy who was not given a job at UCLA, and he just came out of nowhere. But you noticed it the very first game last season in his year at UCLA. I remember had to be maybe a dozen plays into the game. I'm like, who is this guy? I have no idea who Carson Schlesinger is. I promise you I knew who he was several games later. He was the fastest thing on the field at all times. He was always on the ball. And, I mean, they had another pretty good linebacker and a guy called Kay Medrano who got picked up, I think it was in the 4th round by Washington. So they had a good defensive ball club. And Schlesinger was far and away the best player on the field. They had an NFL defensive lineman too. Schlesinger was the best player on the field. And I don't think I have to say much, right? I mean, you see it. He's
sold everywhere now. Yeah.
That's who he was at UCLA. And I wish I could say that I thought there would be no adjustment period. Doesn't look like one.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable.
Pretty nuts. So guys, I went back and I wrote down the what the Browns have given up rushing in their first 3 games to some of these guys. Josh Jacobs, 16 carries for 30 yards. Derrick Henry, 11 carries for 23 yards. Lamar Jackson had 2 carries for 13 yards. Chase Brown of the Bengals had 21 carries for 43 yards. That's kind of getting it done.
I
want good players.
I want to take this opportunity to apologize to Malik Collins because when the Browns signed him, I did not see this coming. He was historically an effective pass rusher, but pretty lousy against the run. He has put it all together this year at 30 years old. And it probably has a lot to do with the guys who are playing with him. But you could not have dropped a guy into a more perfect situation, and he has fully taken advantage of it. So, I was completely wrong on that one, and I'll just tip my cap to Andrew Berry and say, nice ad, good job. because he has completed that defensive interior.
And then some. Yeah, unbelievable season so far. I'm always rooting. Let's keep everybody healthy, right? I mean, because they've got,
Absolutely.
if they can get Mike Hall back on the interior, and now they're rotating Hall and Shelby Harris and Mason Graham and Malik Collins. Goodness gracious, just trouble for everybody. Trouble for everybody.
Yeah.
I think
definitely.
that's a championship type of defense formula, right? That you can get to the quarterback within those first couple seconds and take a lot of pressure off of your secondary. I mean, that's really what you're seeing defenses do to the Browns. Put a lot of pressure on Joe Flacco. Don't give our receivers a chance to get open. You can deal with everything within the first 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's how we need to win games. That's how a lot of other teams are trying to beat us. I think the personnel that we have on the defensive line over the next several years will give us the opportunity to be in a lot of football games.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Strength of the team, clearly.
Yeah.
So we should probably talk a little bit about this game coming up Sunday before we run out of time here, guys. We could probably talk all night just about that Browns defense, but the Browns go to Detroit on Sunday, 1:00 game. The Lions are 2-1. Let's see, they're coming off of win against Baltimore. Thank you, 38-30. They beat Chicago 52-21, and they lost to Green Bay 27-13 week 1. So,
by the way, they sacked Lamar Jackson 7 times in that game.
Lamar Jackson, not Joe Flacco.
I don't know if anybody saw that, but they sacked Lamar Jackson 7 times. Yeah.
That Hutchinson's a problem. Big problem. Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff we've seen the Browns have to do, they're going to have to do, right? The ball has to be out. We're not going to, and again, this is probably one of those areas where I'm sure the coaching staff is balancing. Like, there are some things we have in our offense in terms of some play action and some boot action stuff and some pocket mobility stuff that we're probably not accessing as frequently or as easily with Joe Flacco. And I think ideally they'd be accessing it against a team like Detroit, where you can get them, because they're coming. I mean, and if you can't block them, you better get out of there. And I think we have strong reason to suspect we can't block them. So there better be a plan. I think you're going to see some quick shot stuff to, the Sampsons and the Fannons of the world to keep people honest. And you just got to throw it over their heads, and you got to do it fast. And ideally, you'll be able to run the ball and grind out some time, because this is not the team you're trying to score with.
Right. Yeah.
Their offense is pretty impressive. I mean, Jared Goff's started off the season very well. I forget his percentage, but 74-95. So he's work out to close to 80%, somewhere in that area, for 761 yards, 7 touchdowns, only 1 pick. He's really spreading that ball around. David Montgomery's got 180 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, but he spreads the ball around to St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Matt Laporta. I mean, he's got various receivers, so it's not like you can just put Denzel on one guy like you can some other teams.
St. Brown versus our slot guys could be just a very long day.
It could be, yeah. The one stat that I saw when I was looking at Detroit's numbers was they are 7 of 8 on 4th down this year already.
And going for that is one of their things, right? They're going to go for it on 4th down.
Oh yeah, Dan Campbell gambles,
yeah.
But I don't know how much of a gamble is it when you make it 7 out of 8 times.
Yeah,
he doesn't see it as a gamble. He sees
Right.
it as a
No.
necessary part of his offense, 100%.
He
Yeah.
says we're just tougher than you. We're going to do this.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe where do you guys see this game compared to the games the Browns have played so far this season, as far as the opponent is concerned? I mean, it's not like the Browns have had any cupcakes. I mean, I thought the Bengals defense was going to be a cupcake, and they still played pretty well against the Browns. Other than that, the Browns haven't really had an easy game yet. So how do you look at the Lions compared to these other teams?
Boy, I think they're really good. I think they're one of the handful of teams I definitely think are a genuine Super Bowl contender. I don't think that about most teams. I think there are a couple, 2, 3, maybe in each conference. Probably an extra one in the AFC the last few years. But in the NFC, to me, I mean, it's a couple of those teams in the North, and it's the Eagles, and I think that's about it. I thought it was the Niners, but take the Niners out of there with all the injuries and everything. For me, I just don't think they can absorb all that. So to me, I look at the Lions as one of the very best teams in the league. Offensively, they're just, as the kids say, they're a wagon. They are a lot to deal with. They've got a fantastic offensive line that, they're one of those teams that just has and sticks to an identity. And that identity is that they are going to kick your ass up and down the field all night long. And they're going to do it up front. And then they're going to make you deal with some real electric athletes. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams, Matt Laporta for a tight end is a really tough guy to deal with. And St. Brown is as steady as they come in terms of, I mean, you can't call him a possession receiver, but he works a lot more of that underneath stuff, and he's just deadly, really impossible to cover for any length of time. And so I look at this team as having as few weaknesses really as anybody in the league. And for the Browns to win, I mean, they're going to have to put up as great a defensive performance as they had last week. And they're probably going to need to score more points because they won't get as fortunate. This game's in Detroit. They're a really good team. They don't do anything poorly. Like there's nothing you're going to pick on per se. You just have to be buttoned up, and you better be ready to fight because it's a physical team. And fast and physical is a good way to start in the NFL.
Yeah. Toughest game of the year, Rod. I think this is sort of like the pivotal point, I think, in the schedule where we need to get through this game, answer some questions, and then we can start to build some momentum as an organization and start to learn about some of our young guys and so forth against some teams that we'll probably be able to play a little closer to. Detroit's a really good football team. It's an organization that has, I think, given us a blueprint for how to turn around decades of mediocrity. They did a really nice job of building their roster through the draft the last several years. Some key acquisitions here and there. Obviously, the big quarterback trade a few years back. I mean, no one was in love with Jared Goff, right? When they traded Stafford for him.
No.
And now
worked out a little better than the Watson deal, eh?
Yeah.
So
it's just another case of how quarterbacks can kind of come from anywhere. I mean, no one saw Daniel Jones being 3-0 for the Colts this year. So for us to think about the quarterback situation, we just have to kind of see how that evolves. But yeah, as far as us playing the Lions, this is going to be a tough game. I think our defense is our strength versus a very strong offense on their side is going to be a super good test to see if our defense really is one of the best defenses in the league. If we are, we should be able to keep ourselves somewhat close in this game. What we need to have happen, though, is for our offense, like Ryan said, to give us a little bit more. Where can that spark come from that you mentioned a little bit ago, Rod? I'm going to give you another stat. Jerry Jeudy threw 3 games, 10 receptions for 134 yards and 0 touchdowns. This would be a great opportunity for Jerry Jeudy to go back to what he did last year and give us some big plays. Stop letting the ball doink off of his hands, and actually, give us some high quality play this week. That could be a difference maker for our offense. If they can game plan like Ryan was saying, to get him the ball quickly, and let him do some yard after the catch type stuff, it could really open up what our offense is trying to do. I think teams to this point have really been focusing on taking him out of our game plan. The Browns need to answer that this week. And if Jerry Jeudy has 6 or 8 catches for 60 or 70 yards or more, we've got a chance in this game. If he doesn't, I think we'll probably get shellacked.
Well, let's hope we don't get shellacked. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to get shellacked in a game, this game sets up to be a game that you get shellacked in. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I mean, Detroit just is a very balanced team. It's not like you can shut down one guy on their offense and slow them down. They've got a lot of guys that can do things. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens, especially with being on the road. Lions are favored by 8.5. Does that sound about right to you guys, or based on what some of the other lines have been? The Baltimore and the Green Bay line. Does that sound a little bit low, or you think the Browns are getting a little bit of credit from beating Green Bay?
I think it's 10 a couple days ago.
Yeah,
it was 10 a couple days ago. So yeah, so 8.5. I don't know why it's dropping, but
I saw 8.5. I wrote down yesterday, but I only checked one spot, so that might.
I wrote down 9.5. So yeah, I mean it's somewhere in that range. It's 2 scores, which in the NFL is a lot. But I mean, you have to think the Browns got some credit for beating the Packers, but man, Detroit looks pretty tough.
Yeah. I don't know if it's 8.5 or if it ought to be 14 or what. I think it needs to be a touchdown or more to a team like that in their hometown when you haven't proven you can score. I mean, it's
makes sense.
I agree with everything you said, Jeff. I think this team could be in pretty much every game, which means you have a chance to win pretty much every game if you don't bungle it up on the way, or if you don't miss a 36-yard kick.
True.
You're one kick from being 2-1. Of course, you're also one kick from being 0-3. But it's this is a team that can put itself in position to win. We know that. They were in position to win Cincinnati. They beat the Packers. Whatever else we might say about that game, they beat the Packers. And if you got to win with defense, you gotta. But I think you're asking a lot of your team to shut down an offense like this in their building. Maybe you get a little bit of a help from the fact that they're on. They played the late Monday night game, so they're on short rest. After a Monday night game, and so in theory, you've got a teensy advantage there. But again, you're going on the road to play one of the half dozen best teams in the league, probably top 4 teams in the league. And you got to be buttoned up, and you got to do pretty much everything at your peak to have any chance to win the game.
Yeah. I'll just mention one other thing real quick, Rod. I saw something today. What really separates a great defense from a championship level defense? And the takeaway from that was turnovers. The takeaway was takeaways. We need to be able to, as a defense, impact the score of the game. You saw that last week with the Delpit interception.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
If the defense can become that kind of a group that impacts games by putting points on the board or by setting the Browns up in short fields, that now is one step closer, like what Ryan's saying, to being competitive every week and now having a chance to actually win some of those games that you would lose otherwise. So I'm looking for that to happen in the coming weeks. And I think, the Bush punch out and the Delpit interception, and we've had some other close calls in the first 3 games. If we get over that hurdle as a defense and really start to take the ball away and do those kinds of things, that's going to go a really long way toward helping our offense.
It's a great point. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a Football Life that was done. They do one on all the Super Bowl winners, and they did it on. I'm pretty sure the one I'm thinking of is the Bucks, the year they won it back in I want to say 02. And it was something that I think Gruden challenged them with, or maybe it was the defensive coordinator, Monty Kiffin, challenged them with, is if you're going to be a championship defense, you need to go score touchdowns when you get your turnovers. And he started rattling off all, and when I thought back on it, those are the Steel Curtain scored touchdowns. That 85 Bears defense scored touchdowns. That
right.
Both the Niners and the Cowboys teams of those late 80s, early 90s teams had it was the same guy. Sometimes it was Deion Sanders or it was Charles Haley, but same thing with the Bucks, same thing with that 2000s Ravens team. Impact the score. And the best way to do that is finish your turnover with 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I like it.
Well, yeah. Well, guys, let's get some score predictions here for the game. Ryan, the guest not only goes first, but usually has the correct prediction too, or the closest prediction. So that's just kind of how it typically works out. There's no pressure. Jeff and I just usually aren't that good at predicting scores.
Sounds like it was okay last week.
A little bit.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough slog until the Browns do kind of get a couple things on offense clicking. It's hard for me to see them scoring more than a team like Detroit, frankly. But I have to say, the defensive performances against 3 straight offenses that I think everybody thought were supposed to be among the best in the league across the board.
Yeah.
Is awfully impressive and something to lean into. So when I start thinking of scores, the numbers that I might have had in my head for this game a couple of weeks ago, I'm trying to temper it down a little bit. So let's say I think it's going to be somewhere on the order of Detroit's going to take it 20, let's call it 23-13. I'd love it if we could score more.
Yeah. I think we all would. So,
Yeah.
So Jeff, what do you have?
Well, the Browns are averaging 15 points a game. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt this week and say that they might exceed that by a little bit. It's crazy, Ryan. I had written down the exact same margin just on a higher score. I've got 27-17 Detroit. It's going to be really hard to keep Detroit under 30. I think our defense can do it. Unless the defense can put some points on the board, we're just not going to really have much of a chance in this game, I don't think. So I like the under still. It's going to be probably week 7 or 8 before I give the Browns credit for an over.
Maybe
so
Miami.
just,
we'll see.
Yeah, that just barely gets me to the under. So let's hope our defense can help me out there. But I'm looking specifically, as I mentioned before, for what Jerry Jeudy's stat line looks like in this game. And for me, that's going to determine how close it is.
I'm right along the same lines as you guys. I don't think this is the game where the Browns offense gets going. against Detroit. I think I think there might be a little bit of kind of what happened in the Ravens game, where the offense doesn't do much, and eventually the other team just kind of gets some breaks and scores some points. So I got 27-10. So we're all almost predicting the same game here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've got. So let's see, we've all got the under. So
Yeah.
We'll see. We
gonna be hard
would
to
all
declare.
like to be wrong. Yeah. We'd all like to be wrong, and hopefully we are. But I think it's just an acknowledgement that it's going to be a tough game. And I think we know that if this defense plays great, and if the Browns get some breaks and really step up on offense, they could be in the game. And we'll just have to see what happens. So
Yeah.
So yeah. So well. Ryan, we appreciate you joining us tonight. It's been a lot of fun talking Browns, and we want to let you get going here so you can do that commute home.
Yep, SoCal
So,
hours.
Yeah,
I'm on California time, so I'm still getting home from the office. But no, I had a great time,
Yeah.
guys. Really appreciate you having me on.
absolutely. Is there any closing thoughts or anything you'd like to leave everybody with, the listeners?
Let's just try and enjoy what we can of this football season without making the entire thing, every single play and every single post-mortem about sort of a referendum on whether the coach and the GM are going to stick around, or whether they should have done this or that with a different quarterback 5 years ago. I honestly, I don't have a lot of interest in most of Brown's discourse right now. I'm really interested in watching how this group responds to what I think is an interesting challenge in front of it. They've been basically given the gift of a second life as a regime, this coach and this GM. I think a lot of people thought an extension and continued support was unlikely. Everything I see out of the Haslams and the ownership is that they're, at least for the moment, going to be patient about this. I think that is prudent. I think I would not have done the Watson deal. And so with that being part of my, analysis, it's hard for me to hang that over everybody's head, because even though I wouldn't have done it, I totally understood it. They were a team that they thought had built a Super Bowl roster, and they didn't think they had the quarterback that could get them over the hump in that moment. Let's remember that Baker Mayfield today is not Baker Mayfield then.
Right.
I probably would have, in all fairness, I probably would have just tagged him and tried to keep it together for another year and continued to play the draft cycle and seen what I could get out of it. That's probably what I would have done. But they thought they had a Super Bowl roster, and they had what they thought was an available MVP style quarterback. And in that moment, they decided they were going to take a gigantic swing to try and win Super Bowls. And ultimately, I want my team to do that. And so it didn't work. It didn't work, and we're all stuck with the results of it not working. And to me, we're still in the residue of that. And so I understand why people have a lot of consternation about it. I'm going to still live in the real world, which is that's what happened. And if you're not going to fire him over it, well, then you better give him a year or two to see what happens. And I think that's where the ownership landed. Frankly, I think that was the right decision, even though I think there are valid arguments either way. And we'll just have to see if it plays out. They're going to have to find a quarterback, and they probably need to do it from one of the guys in-house now, or somebody they draft in the first round next year. And then we'll all have it out again. But I think this team, they've drafted a ton of young guys who are going to play a lot, and they're already playing well. There's some reasons to be optimistic about some of the future. Let's see if the rest of the blocks fall into place. Go Browns.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Jeff, any closing thoughts tonight?
Yeah. 1-3 after 3 games. When we did the schedule predictions early on, none of us thought we'd be 1-3 at this point, or excuse me, 1-2 at this point after 3 games. We all thought we'd be 0-3. Anybody in their right mind thought we'd be 0-3. If we can win one more game in the next 3 weeks and be 2-4 after this first 6-game stretch, I would be ecstatic, and I would say that we overperformed expectations. So we're right on course to do that. It might not have happened the way we thought it might, but
Right.
that's the NFL for you. You lose games you're supposed to win. You win games you're supposed to lose, and that will keep happening. So, there's plenty of fun to be had this season. 100%, Ryan. Let's not get caught up in who's going to be here, who isn't. Let's just enjoy these young guys and the fact that we're actually in football games this year when we weren't last year at all.
Amen.
And
Last year was so bad.
Yeah,
Unwatchable.
let's just have fun with this. We as an organization, for all the reasons Ryan just said, are not in a position to beat a team like the Detroit Lions. It could happen because that's the way the NFL works. Okay, but realistically, this is not a game that you expect to win, based on where the organizations are at this moment in time, right? So, thus the predictions, right? But there are plenty of winnable games on the schedule over the next couple of months, and I think these guys are only going to play better as time goes on. So, plenty of fun things to watch.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank everybody for listening and checking out the podcast tonight. This has been the Browns Blitz, and we will catch you next time.